morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Porsche Cooled Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. My name is Michael Barth. Steve is going to join me shortly. Steve is my mate from Sydney, Australia. You guys know him already. He's going to be joining by Zoom. We always do these podcasts by Zoom because I'm in London at the moment and Steve's in Sydney, as I just said. About to travel back to Bahrain, in about a week's time. So I'll be doing the podcast again from sunny Bahrain in the coming weeks. I don't think I talk too much before I get Steve on Zoom, so let me just get sorted out here. We'll connect with Steve and we'll start talking all things Porsche. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm a bit flat today. Sorry, I've been in and out of feeling. Steve's here. Hi, Steve.
Hey, mate. How you going?
That was a quick intro, wasn't it? You didn't expect that one.
No, I was expecting. I was looking at the grey background behind you again. London's weather's a bit overcast.
Yeah, I'm just checking if I'm recording because I'm a bit forgetful. I am recording. Yeah, it's a dismal day today. I woke up this morning. The rain is, we're up on the 17th floor or whatever it is, and the rain is just pelting against the bedroom window. It's terrible. Okay. And it's been such great weather. It's been literally like clear and freezing, but no rain.
Yep.
But the rain has started again. The one thing I don't like about London...
Of Sydney.
Is it?
Yeah. Sydney was raining constantly for quite a while. I didn't go for a drive for more than 2 weeks, when your remote doesn't work and you have to stick the key in the door lock.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, I hadn't driven the car. I guess that's more than 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that was purely because it was just raining and I don't like to drive out in the rain.
Yep.
It's gone sunny again, so...
Well, that's good. So no drives, no drives through Sydney, yeah.
No, nothing to speak of.
I don't know. I keep looking at Instagram and keep seeing all these people look like they're enjoying their cars. It just makes me feel more depressed.
It's just a facade, mate. You know that.
Yeah, it is actually, I think. It is actually. Yeah. I mean, Instagram is highly...
The life that you culture on social media. And you curate.
Which is what everyone says. It's all curated, isn't it? It's not really real. A lot of it's not real.
Yeah.
It's weird that... It's funny, this morning I saw something and I've been saying that, I've been thinking about this and I've been saying it to Tasha actually, that, all these people have gone to Dubai. Like everyone's going to the UAE to Dubai for, to get out of the UK. Well, summer, they go away for the winter and you can go to Dubai. And Dubai has just been put on the hit list for the UK that you have to quarantine when you come back for 14 days.
Right.
Probably because the cases in Dubai are quite high. They tend to sort of hide it very well in the UAE, but they are quite high.
Yeah. Right.
So that's going to be a bit of a problem for all those influencers coming back to the UK, and then they have to quarantine. What are they going to do? They can't take photos. I'll take photos in their house.
Just Photoshop, mate.
Yeah, Photoshop. True. All right. What's happening this week? This week, not much has been going on, actually. It's been very, very quiet for me. I've been feeling a little bit under the weather here and there last few days, so I'm actually feeling better today. What did I say? What did we talk about last week? The Singer. The GT3. Oh, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. The GT3 episode last week about your servicing costs, Steve. People really liked that episode. It's been one of our most popular episodes, actually. I'm not sure if that's the title or if it was the substance of it, but it seems to be one of our most popular episodes.
I think that's clickbaity headlines.
I think that's what it is, though.
This time.
No, it wasn't really. I think that's what it is. I know when I'm, when you're thinking about buying a Porsche or you're thinking about, your next one, like the GT3, it's interesting to hear, the owner's perspective. And, especially a long-term owner like you, and having owned the 997 GT3 for so long now, like 7 years, coming on 7 years, it is a good insight. It's an insight that you can't necessarily just get on forums because you've got to sift through all the rubbish to get to the point. And that's why I thought it was. I thought it was good.
It did make me ponder. Remember a while ago we did talk about it in one of the early podcasts where I joined you about when you posted something on YouTube and one of your followers. From Melbourne, he had the white GT3. Was he the architect guy, or there was another guy who basically said that his ownership experience is more like, was it 15K a year or something like that?
Yeah, Nick from Melbourne.
I was still surprised at that kind of number, but maybe that's, again, I think I said this last time as well, is that because he tracked his car or something? I don't know.
I guess.
Completely different ends of the spectrum.
I guess it is because, if you track your car, I guess the cost will go up. But I guess if you were doing, using it as a daily and you were driving it a lot, I guess your costs would go up as well a little bit, right? A little bit.
Not to 15K a year though.
True.
Well,
It's interesting actually, and I can't remember the guy's name, and he's maybe listening to the podcast, so sorry for not remembering your name. But someone reached out to me a while back who's got a 996, and I want to get them on owner stories. I haven't done it yet because, as you know, I'm still catching up. But they have a 996. He has a 996 that he's owned since new.
Okay, cool.
So I think that conversation, and I haven't mentioned it to the gentleman, but I think that conversation will be a good one because, having one since new, the change in the cost of ownership, the change from when you first bought it. I know it's under warranty and whatever, but then the change going up, like the cost that you spend on servicing, the cost on maintenance, the cost on just keeping the car. I think that will be quite an interesting conversation, especially because it is a 996 and a lot of people, and we're sort of not talking about the 996 today, but we're talking about 997, but we will get into a little bit about the 996, 997 debate, so to speak, and the tipping point for prices. But I think that would be an interesting maintenance story, owner's story, because just to see how those costs have changed and his perception of the car has changed from the beginning when he first picked it up new to today.
Yeah. Definitely kind of curious because it's not one of those cases where you sort of search for a used 996 that's kind of been well looked after and had all the kind of potential issues fixed. So then you kind of had to live with it right from the very beginning and possibly endure not endure some of those issues.
Yeah, true. All right, let's just get on to the usual stuff. Ratings and reviews. Please, guys, if you can go to Apple when you're listening to the podcast. If you listen to it on Apple, I know a lot of people listen to the podcast, Steve, on Spotify. We've had a really huge influx of people on Spotify. I think we have 220 or 230 followers on Spotify podcasts for the podcast. Okay. So. I think it's actually more than Apple. So it seems a lot of people listen to the podcast on Spotify, obviously because that's cross-platform. Oh, is Apple Podcast cross-platform? I don't even know. I think most people that listen to Apple Podcasts are on iPhone or Macs, right? So, but I know a lot of people listen to it on Spotify. If you listen to it on Spotify, please follow us. It helps. And there's also a lot of people that listen to it on Stitcher. I'm not 100% how Stitcher works. I have it. I don't really look at it that much, but it seems like that's a popular platform for people to use. Yeah, so a lot of people listen to it on Stitcher. I'm not sure if you can follow on Stitcher. I'm sure you can if you give us a follow on that. But with Apple, like I said, to get found in the search results for Apple, just give us a rating or a review. A star rating's fine. That's easy. If you haven't got time to write a review, it's no problem. Just give us a star rating. It helps us be seen by other people that want Porsches, who want to look at, hear about Porsches, want to hear the podcast. The Patreon, Steve, no new members this week. I think last week I said we had 19 members. We actually have 16 members. I don't know where I got 19, a bit dyslexic. But we have 16 members on Patreon. No new members. I did have a question from Sean, though, and I'm just going to do it. And I don't have an answer for this, but maybe someone who's listening to the podcast has one or knows someone that has one and can just reach out, send me a DM, and I can give Sean the answer. But Sean wanted to know if we knew anyone that had the new Cayman 718 GT4. Because he doesn't have a 911 yet. He doesn't have a Porsche. He's looking for one in Japan. He thinks it's a bit more user-friendly to have the GT4, not as harsh as a GT3. I'm not sure because I'm not sure that much about the GT4. But the performance, but the performance side of it, he's keen on the performance. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about if it's not as harsh. It depends on what spec you get, right?
I'm not speaking from experience because I've not driven one, never been in one. I know Granted Auto House has a GT, the original generation GT4, which I know he was kind of super happy with. But I'd hazard speculating though, like I can't imagine that it's any softer or harder than a GT3. It's still sort of more on the sportier, harder side of things, but I can't imagine a GT3 would be that hard, and that a GT4 would be that much more comfortable or softer kind of thing.
I think it'd be very close to a GT3.
Yeah,
I think
sort
it'd
of
be
say
very
they'd
close.
be equally usable, right?
Yeah, and I think the newer ones even more so probably than the previous generation. I don't know why, but I think it would be very close. I think it's a great car. I think the GT4 is great.
Yeah.
We're both a fan. Steve and I are both a fan of that new Spider, the new Spider, which has got the 4.0 liter. Both a fan of that. And then also the GTS with the 4 liter. You know what I mean? The 4.0 GTS as well is still a good car. And the 718 GTS. So there's plenty to choose from there in differing prices. He said that in Okinawa, though, it's a bit of a problem because it's humid there. It's very humid, and it's a small island, and there's a lot of salt and humidity. That would scare me with a car. Like all the salt in the air, I guess, would be a problem. But I guess it's not much different than living in a beachside area in Australia, right? If you live in close to the beach or whatever, you always have to be sort of have that in your mind.
Vigilant.
Yeah. When we first moved to the Central Coast in Australia, I remember even with my father with his Holdens and stuff, the locally made car, like he was worried about the sea water because coming from the country and then living next to the coast, he always thought it was going to be a problem that your car would rust. So I don't know.
I don't know, but it's a good conundrum to have if you're kind of thinking about a 718 GT4.
Well, I was going to say, as your first Porsche, yes, please. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
yes,
way
please.
cool.
Yeah, it's a great first Porsche. I would definitely say yes to that one. All right. But anyway, if anyone has any experience with that, reach out to me and I'll pass it on to Sean. Let's help other owners out and other potential owners out to get their dream Porsche. PorscheCooled owner stories, another good one. And like I said, I recorded these before Christmas. A lot of these owner stories, I did like a whole stretch of them, Steve, as you know. And that was Ryan from Chicago. Ryan's a nice guy. He lives in Chicago. I love Chicago. It's a nice city. You can follow him. You should follow him on Instagram. He's set up now an Instagram just for his car. He didn't have one before, which is at 996CHI, at 996CHI. It's in the description of the podcast if you can't remember that. But check out Ryan's Instagram, give him a follow, and tell him that you heard his story on Owner Stories. That would be great. But he used to live in Detroit, Steve. He was brought up in Detroit, so him and his father, and I think his uncle, they used to always go to or his father and him, they'd always visit the American International Auto Show, the North American International Auto Show every year. So his passion kind of started there, and then his father-in-law...
Is Detroit still Motor City? It's not
it was Motor City, Yeah, well, that's what I mean. When it was Motor City, I think that's when he was living there. I don't know.
Is it now?
I'm not sure. Yeah. But he found a good example. Him and his wife have a Macan like you. They bought the Macan first before they bought the 911. So once he was in the Macan, then he knew he wanted the 911. But, Ryan wanted the 996. He wanted it for various reasons. He's got a 996 Cabriolet.
Yep.
And like I said, you buy the Porsche that you want. You buy the Porsche you can afford. Sometimes they cross over. You get the one you want at the price that you are happy to pay, which is always fantastic. He wants to get a GT3, a 996 GT3. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And he said he'll keep the Cabriolet when he gets a 996 GT3. But I think he's looking, in the next year or so, he hopes to get a GT3 and he wants to keep both. So,
Yeah, cool.
I mean, he's passionate. He's loving the car. His car came fitted with, I can't remember the name, sorry, Ryan. It came fitted with, I think it might be FabSpeed actually, with a FabSpeed exhaust. He wants to get the engine, man, I should know this, I'm really sorry. The carbon fiber engine thing that you were going to get on your GT3, you can get it for a 996.
Oh, the air intake.
Yeah, you can get it for a 996. 996 road trip guy, the guy that has the tent on his Brock, the guy that has the tent on his roof, the guy that was first started doing it. Now everyone's copying him. Right. He has that on his 996, apparently, on his Carrera 4S. So Ryan was keen to do that. But I'm not going to give away too much more. Listen to it. PorscheCooled Owner Stories this week. Like I said, Ryan from Chicago. It's a good one. Owner Stories. I think that's must be number 16. I think it was number 16. So we've done 16 Owner Stories now, Steve. So it's getting up there.
Right. That airbox thing is interesting. Like, I know, like I've looked at it a couple of times on GT3s, but it feels like the consensus on forums is don't do it. This is specifically GT97 GT3.
Oh, really?
That, it just doesn't, like there's no performance gain and if you don't oil your filter properly and all that sort of stuff, in fact, it can cause issues. So everybody kind of pretty much says stick with the factory kind of paper filters and don't bother changing your airbox out.
But didn't you see a car for sale once? There was a 997 GT3 for sale, and you wanted to buy the part off the guy. You actually said, "Can you sell me that part?" Because he couldn't sell the GT3. Remember, it was up for sale for ages, and you said, "I've asked him if he can sell the part to me."
I was just curious about like what he thought about the part. It was a Group M part, which is some carbon bits. I think they're made in Japan, and I was just kind of curious as to whether or not he sort of if it was worth it. Same question. But it turned out that he bought the car with that on there, so he had no idea whether or not what it was like without it, basically.
It just looks super cool. That's all. The carbon when you open the engine.
It's bloody expensive. It's like
looks cool though.
Almost $3,000 for that stupid bit, and if there's no performance gain, I don't know if it's worth it.
It's like the thing with air filters, isn't it? People that do you have the standard air filter in your car? Like they change the you change the air filter. Does it make a difference? Some people say it does. Some people say it doesn't.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Like in this instance on a 997 GT3, it sounds like the answer to that is generally no, and there's a possible bad side to it, but that might be different for a 996 or a standard 997 Carrera kind of thing.
During the week, Steve, a 912 came up. Did I send it to you? I can't remember if I sent it to you or not, at Beverly Hills Car Club. I'm still looking at prices. Yeah, a 912 came up at Beverly Hills Car Club. It was white. I know you did see it. You said walk away from it or don't get involved in it. It was too much.
Oh, the cheap one. Yeah.
Well, cheap, relatively cheap. It's $32,500 US. It had a hit in the left on the driver's side door. It looked like it had a ding in the driver's side door and the mirror was pushed in. The engine looked clean. The car itself looked reasonably clean, actually. It looked like the thing, like what you said in the description, it said that it was running motor. I don't know what running motor means in an ad. Running motor means you can't drive it.
It wasn't running. It was, what was the term?
I thought he said
running. It wasn't
running.
Running. It was like turning
motor.
Something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, which you can actually, it'll start, but you can't drive the thing. I mean, it said it came out of long-term storage, so the engine itself, though, looked in pretty good condition. I sent it to Nick, actually, who was on Owner Stories last week, who had the similar car, the 68 white one, and he thought it was quite a good one. I think he said. I mean, for the points that I thought too, the reasons why I thought it was quite a good one. One, it's matching numbers, not that important, not super important. Original paint, and they do the paint meter thing where they show you it's original paint.
Yep, saw that.
Inside was a mess. It needed a lot of work on the inside, and the wheels. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how long it was in storage for. I mean, rust-wise, it didn't look that bad. The the floors looked okay and everything like that. It didn't look so bad. I don't know. I mean, 32.5 is a pretty good price compared to prices in the UK. Like I said last week's episode, I'm a bit distressed by the prices in the UK. So it kind of makes me want to give up hope a little bit because they're just I think it's just getting too expensive for the the quality of them.
Yeah, right.
But obviously there are still bargains in the US, and it's just about searching and trying to find them, I guess. So last week we were talking about that Singer that seemed to be everyone's point of conversation. Some people had, more of a direct link to Singer and could chat to them about it, but we don't. We're just a small podcast here. So we just ramble on about it ourselves, but people do have contacts. We don't. The Singer broke the internet, Steve, that Safari. Like I said, we keep talking about whether Porsche are going to bring out a Safari 911. I'd say they probably will. But, if you want one of those cars, if you want a Singer, I'll eventually get to the point here. If you want a Singer, if you want a Gunther Works, if you want a Rod Emery, 356 Outlaw, you can't just go and buy one. And this is the problem. You think when you have, all of a sudden you have $10 million in your bank account, you sell all your crypto or you sell your real estate and you make all this money. And you think, okay, I'm going to go and buy a Singer, Steve. It's like, well, you can't just go and buy a Singer, right? Because you have to wait like everyone else that's waiting to get a Singer, all these other millionaires that want a Singer. But you can actually get one.
Sorry,
because
I've got a screaming kid in the background and a singing neighbour as well.
That's okay. So you can actually, RM Sotheby's, I sent you the link before, I don't know whether you looked at it. They've got a 1989 Porsche 911, reimagined by Singer. It's pretty nice.
It's cool.
In grey. I think it's grey, was it? It was grey, wasn't it? Grey,
Yes.
tobacco leather interior, 4-litre air-cooled flat 6. So it's in Geyser grey, is it? Geyser.
Guys are grey.
Geyser grey, Bahama yellow brake calipers, which look really good behind the Fuchs. It was commissioned by a Canadian businessman, I think I read, in 2016, and it was completed the year later. Like it took a year to make this car as well. So when you actually get on the waiting list and they say, yeah, we can make the car for you, how many years are you going to wait before you can actually enjoy it? I guess you could save the money. You could say, you just start with no money and just try to get the money within that period, Steve.
Yep.
But what was interesting, I thought, it's for sale for $925,000. But it said, it's obviously it's a 964, typical for Singer. It's based on a 964. And it's manual transmission, etc. Porsche Flat 6. Apparently,
it's one of the early cars, isn't it?
Yeah, and apparently the engine cost alone was an $88,000. What was it? The 4-litre power plant has been built by Ed Pink Racing Engines in California at a cost of $88,000. Olin suspension system, which is another cost upgrade, big brakes. And it says the build sheet indicates the cost, and this was interesting, I thought. The chassis amounted to $752,000. So $752,000 US is what it cost.
Did they ever release those sorts of kind of numbers and costs? I'd imagine that Singers sort of keep all that sort of stuff close to their chest, because it's the first time I've ever kind of had any understanding of like if you kind of add that cool kind of fuel filler cap thing, on the center bonnet, and all of a sudden that's like 11 grand.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize that was.
I had no understanding of the costs of, and all the options and stuff.
I didn't realize that was an option. I thought that was just standard on Singers that you get that fuel tank. But yeah, you've got to pay, like Steve said, you've got to pay $11,000 US dollars to have that fuel tank in the center. And I mean, it's cool, right? But $11,000. Yeah. But what I thought was interesting, though, I always thought Singers were around 500,000 US because I think that's what I've always read. And it seems like they are around 500,000 US, but that's base. That's their base cost. Okay. Because it said this one was 752 and 257,000 US dollars of that 752 were extra cost mechanical and cosmetic options that they added, that the owner who commissioned it added to the car. And the car's
only the whole point, though.
Yeah.
If you're going to commission a Singer, then you're going to customize the hell out of it and make it, your own. It's pretty much, like your kind of Porsche wet dream.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to do it. You know what I mean? Like you said, you would go all the way. So 752,000. It was done in 2016, 2017. It was completed, and the car's only been driven 500 miles since 2017. Yeah. So who's ever bought it is not really driving it. And now it's for sale. So you could actually, if you have 925,000 US dollars plus I think it's a for sale Sotheby's ad. I don't think it's a auction one, so I'm not sure how the fees work. But you could actually get one and have one tomorrow. You could be driving it tomorrow. So
it's the spec of it's nice. I mean, I like the kind of color and the interior and like all the kind of bits that are red. But I mean, how many Singers are not sort of particularly nice?
It's
not that many that don't look that good.
Yeah, the listeners can just go to Sotheby's, rmsotheby's.com, and you just do a search for Singer, it'll come up. But it's it's got a nice stance to it. It's one of my favorite colors. It has the orange script on the side. It has the orange calipers. In that gray, the original Porsche color, 4-litre. I mean, it's a beautiful car. No doubt, it's a beautiful car. 925,000. I think you won't lose money on it. I don't think you'd ever lose money on a Singer.
Just do it.
Yeah. So anyone who's got that amount of money listening to the podcast, go and buy it. Go to RM Sotheby's and buy it. I wish.
You do. Just drop this whole 912 facade and then just go straight to the Singer.
Yeah. Based on a 964. I was wondering about that, is that the reason why 964 values jumped up over 993? Because Singer used the 964? I never thought about that before, and I'm wondering if that all comes into the equation.
I thought it was the most kind of accessible, and I don't think that was the case. But it was interesting. I can't remember where I heard the kind of conversation, but there was a part of the kind of enthusiast group out there that were lamenting the fact that because Singer were taking 964s as their base and basically reimagining it, that like all these 964s were being lost. effectively.
I think people have that same argument with Rod Emery, don't they, with the 356 as well?
Is it?
Because he puts,
okay.
he changes the body panels. He changes basically all the panels and I think in the beginning that's what people thought, and now it's changed. You know what I mean? It has actually changed.
Right.
But I guess it's the same as taking a nice, perfect 1989, Carrera G50 and changing it into a Lee Keen Safari car.
Safari, yeah. I guess it just depends on the numbers in terms of how many of them were kind of made. But
I don't even know what those numbers were. I'm guessing they were quite high in the US.
964s or?
Yeah, 964s, Carrera, 80s Carreras.
90s was sort of like, early 90s was pretty much the time where they thought that Porsche was in trouble and could potentially kind of go under.
Oh, that's right.
So 993 was the thing that sort of kept them afloat.
Before the SUVs came in.
Yeah, so theoretically, I don't think there would be like a ton of 964s.
Yeah, probably right. So in the owner stories, Steve, a lot of people, I mean, it's quite, if you look through the last 16 owner stories, there's quite a lot of people who have 996s. And obviously because of the price of the 996s. Not so many people have the 997. Not so many of the owner stories have the 997. Obviously there were a couple, but not so many. Connor had the 997 Cabriolet, 0.2 Cabriolet. There were a couple in there, but not as many as the 996. Obviously 996s is because of the price at the moment and because of the, I guess it's probably because of the price, right? But let's come back to that. I'm getting off track here, Steve. I'm losing my train of thought. Let's come back to the 997 actually, because Steve and I were talking about this the other day before last week's episode, and I know we've kind of probably touched on it before, Steve. Have we? Not what we don't
think so, but
I guess it's not like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's not like what we hate and what we don't hate about the 997, but it kind of is, right? So, well, I'm trying to put this in a way. I don't want to do it like the 5 things we hate and love about the 997 because it's not that.
No, I guess don't think it's like that.
No, I guess when you're looking for a 997. And you're thinking about, let's forget about the mechanical things, right? We know that whatever version you buy, it's a great car. It doesn't matter if it's a 0.1 or a 0.2. Obviously, the 0.1s in 997s have, the IMS thing, which you shouldn't get too hung up on. There's the IMS bearing failure, which can happen. Yeah, it can be costly. If you bought a car over 2006 like mine, it's got the larger bearing, which can't be replaced, can't have the LN engineering retrofit thing that 996s have. You can only do that on the first 997, the 04 to 05 model, 997, the very first, which came out in 04, 997. 06s, they changed it, and then I think 07, they changed it again. I think there was 2 changes in the bearing size, right? And then you've got the bore scoring thing, which happens in 997s. Apparently, it happens in the 3.8S more than it happens in the 3.6. Then there's the other one, which always comes up, which I don't know much about, Steve, is the coil packs, which apparently isn't an expensive fix. The coil pack side of it, the misfiring engine, something about being exposed to high temperatures and the coil packs fail or something like that, I think it was, from memory.
Is that just sort of like a standard kind of thing, though? Isn't that sort of just like a wear and tear kind of thing? I can't remember. I think maybe that happened to my 993.
Yeah, I think it says...
Albeit a much older car. But
I did write something down about that. It's apparently when it's exposed to high temperatures in their location next to the exhaust, the coil packs. Yep. And apparently they have to be fixed during the 997's life, and they're just a maintenance item, and they're not that expensive to fix.
Yep.
But, they're mechanical things. They're the mechanical things that when you're buying a 997, you don't, it comes into mind. But when it comes to the non-mechanical side...
sort of like the day-to-day things that you kind of live with that might niggle at you as you kind of go along in your ownership experience.
Yeah, those day-to-day things. And I guess when you're first starting to look at them, when you're first starting to think, do I want a 997, you might look at them and go, oh, do I really want one? I really hate that. I really hate this. So I guess it's, the things what do we call it? The things we don't like, what's not to like about the 997, I guess. But, yeah. So...
Yeah, I've got a few.
What are they, Steve? Tell me. Save me.
I can rattle off. Okay, so keeping in mind I drive a GT3, but I reckon it's probably
Steve's rich.
Not as rich as Michael. I think it's probably standard kind of thing across all 997s. Like I'll roll with, when it comes to the interior, there's a couple of little things. I personally can't stand the kind of volcano grey trim. There's this sort of thing in Gen 1s where they did this sort of weird thing where they started mixing and matching, like there's kind of silver pieces and then there's kind of grey bits that go with the black plastic, and most 997s, I guess, have black leather and vinyl kind of trim all over the place. So I have no idea what's with that kind of volcano grey thing. If I had my way, I would basically eliminate it from the interior, but which you could do. You could kind of take all those bits and either have them retrimmed or sprayed black.
But I think all my pieces are all volcano grey. I don't think there's any silver. I know that the S
silver bits.
No, because the base Carrera, I don't think there is. I could be wrong, but the base Carrera had the volcano grey, and then the Carrera S had the silver. The Carrera S actually had silver, which is actually slightly nicer.
What about your, like, so you know your steering wheel, the kind of horn buttons?
Oh yeah, they're
on
silver.
the 3 spokes.
Yeah, they're probably silver.
Just
the door handles are silver.
Really, yeah, it's weird little oddities like that. It's like, why do they not just sort of kind of go one way or the other? Why did they kind of pick two?
I think that they should have just kept it. I don't think they should have made the S. You know, the silver in the S makes more sense, where the silver trim, where it is not the grey, it is more silver. I think that makes sense. They should have just had that in the Carrera as well. You know what I mean? But then the silver's a little bit odd too in the Carrera S, Steve, because it doesn't match the PCM unit.
Yeah.
In the 0.1, because of the PCM's volcano grey.
I think they kind of started to eliminate it in the Gen 2 997, where there was more like the kind of center console didn't have volcano grey and it was black, which, and look, I'm nitpicking, but I prefer just sort of one kind of color. I actually started a little bit of a crusade where I started to try to get rid of some of those bits and I put carbon things in there. But you don't want to be chasing that for real.
But you've eradicated pretty much all of that volcano grey, right? Because even the GT3 has it. You know, this is the weird thing though, because this is really strange, and I haven't thought about this before. So the Carrera S has silver trim, because when you look on Suncoast and parts, it's silver trim. But then the GT3 had volcano grey trim.
No, I think it was. I don't know the absolute ins and outs of it. There's mixed bits of it here and there. Like same what you just sort of said about the door handles. My original door handles were silver as well. But then the center console was kind of grey. Some of the steering wheel trim is kind of volcano grey.
I mean, I like the silver door handles on the 997 on the Porsche. I like the silver door handles. I think I know you changed yours to carbon, but I actually don't. I quite like them. They have a nice feel to them. They feel very Audi-ish, though. I mean, they're very Volkswagen Group. You know, those handles.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah, they're very. It reminds me of the Audi. It's one of the points that reminds me of the Audi, that the door handles.
I was going to suggest that maybe that kind of mix and match of silver grey and all that sort of stuff, it's a very Audi kind of aesthetic. I reckon from sort of early 2000 Audi kind of cars.
But when the 997 came out, and you know, we always talk about the PCM unit, how ugly it is, and you know, you've got to push all the numbers on there for the telephone and whatever. Was it cool when it came out? See, I can't remember. Was it? Did people look at it and go, "Wow, that's really modern and really cool"? And it's just dated. It's going to be like all these new cars with screens. They're just going to date very quickly.
Yeah, it could be. You could be dead right. I guess in its time it may have been sort of relatively technological and stuff like that.
I mean, I think the main problem is it looks a little bit cheap, and I think it is about the color, but and I don't want to compare it to Audi, but Audi interiors are the leader in my mind. The Audi interiors still are very, very well done. I mean, obviously Porsche's got a lot better. 911s are a lot better now. The new generation, even the 991 generation, are much better. But in the 997, it was still suffering a bit from that, from that. I mean, it's better than the 996, and I'm not having
exactly that.
Yeah,
I've got exactly that on my kind of list of things. Like, I still would maintain that a 996 interior, the kind of quality of the plastics and everything is not particularly great, and 997 definitely improved on that. But I would argue that it's still not brilliant kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know you said the plastics aren't great. I don't think the dash in plastic is that bad. It's not as padded as other cars when they have plastic dashes. It's like a lot harder. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think
Yep.
my Audi was a lot softer. The plastic on the dash, like it actually had quite a lot of sponginess to it if you pushed it.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just different. The PCM is the thing that's going to stand out in most people's eyes, and most people change it, like you, Steve, to an aftermarket system. You can go to your local leather guy, or you can go to Exclusive Option, and they do the leather. You can get it all covered in black leather. Obviously, people with a 997.2 don't have that problem because the 997.2 was black, which looked much better, the black PCM unit.
Yep.
Eventually, once Porsche 997s get classic status, as we've said before, you'll get the PCCM Plus unit, I'm guessing, for the 997. It would be interesting when they... Yeah, but it'll be interesting when they do that because it'll have to be black, right? It would be black.
Yeah, and you're right. So if they do that, then as you kind of go down your sort of center console, it's not going to line up because
this is what I mean. It may not
kind of grow underneath it.
Yeah. So what are they going to do? They're going to do it in black. They're going to do it in grey. It's a tricky one because it might look it may not look great.
Yeah. True. Very true.
What else, mate?
I reckon, so I'd put PCM is kind of rubbish, very debatable kind of thing. I've obviously chosen to switch mine out, but as you sort of say, like it may not have been rubbish for its time, but I think in this day and age, like it sort of holds for all cars that most kind of head units and sort of center system thingies are just not very good, like 20 years on, or almost 20 years on.
Yeah.
I would add to that I think from what I know of the general sound system quality is pretty shite, inclusive of the kind of upgraded Sound Plus and Bose systems. To my ears, when I've kind of ever heard it, you've got Bose in yours, don't you?
Yeah, I've got Bose.
You've got Bose. I've got, I had the Plus, which was one tiny step up, and no offense to you, but I reckon they sound pretty shit. For that kind of ilk of car?
I'm going to seem a little bit silly here. I don't really know because I haven't really used it properly. It's weird in the 911. I hardly ever have the music on. When I had the Audi, I'd have music on all the time. Maybe I'm just getting old. Yeah. But I just don't have the music on. I really don't want to listen to that much stuff in the car. Maybe even when I drive up to the... When I drive up to the coast, when I do a 2-hour drive or whatever, an hour and a half drive, I will listen to music for a bit and then I'll turn it off. But I don't listen to it that much. I don't think, and I'm going to, this is going to get really annoying, but you have to compare it. My Audi had the Bose system. I upgraded it because I ordered that car from new and it had the Bose system. And I thought that was a pretty good system. It sounded pretty damn good.
Yeah, I had Bose in my S3. I don't know. Sorry. Like now you can seriously hear my neighbours talking about sound quality.
Steve's got this neighbour that's actually singing in the background, which would be really annoying. I
really
couldn't
bad.
help myself, but I'd go out there and tell him to shut up.
I'm close. It's really bad. I'm very sorry. Hopefully you can edit some of it out, but
no, I'll leave it in.
I
can't edit it out. I'll just leave it in, just so the listeners know what that noise is. It's actually Steve's neighbour singing in their apartment
at the top of his voice. He's turned his music up, and then he stands on his balcony and belts it out like he's sort of on Australian Idol or something like that.
Is he a bit crazy? Is he?
But
he must be crazy.
No, he's not. He's just got no self-awareness. I hope he listens to this.
I
he
doubt
obviously
it.
doesn't. But
all right. So the sound system, Steve reckons it's not that great. I don't know if it's that great or not because I don't really listen to it that much. But I think, comparing it, I'll use my benchmark as the Audi one because it's similar, same group. I think the Audi one was much better. But I don't think
I mean too.
I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's terrible. I don't know what the entry level one would sound like. I found when I have my back seats down, obviously when the seats are down and you can see those Bose speakers or woofers or whatever they are in the back, I don't even know what they are, that have the Bose logo on them. I think it does sound better when they're down.
Yeah, the woofers.
With the woofers, I think it does sound better when they're down. But that's
I'm comparing it to sort of like a similar vintage, like my mum's C63 or, some of my uncle's cars or like my 1M, all their standard kind of sound systems actually kind of sounded better. I know you could argue in a GT3 it doesn't really matter because they're loud cars, but I'd say arguably if you wanted to kind of go for a long drive in your car, like the sound system should be kind of reasonable for the money that you pay.
Yeah, and in saying that, I think if I did buy a 911 new, I would spec the slightly better sound system. I don't know why. It's something that I think I would always tick.
Because you can afford it.
Yeah,
you can
probably.
afford it. If you can afford it, and
yeah, I would always
tick
tick it. I'd always tick that as an option because I don't know, just maybe you'll never use it, but just the fact that you've got something that should sound better.
Yep.
What else, mate?
Agree. I don't think you've got this option on your car. I do. TPMS is very temperamental. Can be kind of temperamental. Mine's kind of functioning perfectly fine right now, but it can be a little bit sort of dodgy, twitchy, whatever. I think I've talked about it before. I find it quite a useful thing to have in the car, but it isn't always necessarily consistent.
Yeah, I wish I had it actually, because I like checking things. I like stats and I like data, so I like looking at things. So the more things I can have like that, so it makes me feel, gives me peace of mind is better. And especially with tire pressure, it's always. I remember when I first bought the 911, I was always worried about two things. I was worried about tire pressure and oil pressure and oil temperature, and I don't know why. I think it was. Maybe that came from you. I don't know. Maybe it came from things I was reading that, you had to always make sure the oil was up to temperature. You got the oil gauge in your 911, and then the oil pressure.
Not all cars give you, I think it's not a specific 911 trait, but most cars don't give you oil pressure. They'll give you temperature or engine temperature, not even oil temperature.
Not oil pressure. Yeah, exactly. So you've got this extra gauge. So it's always one of those things. I mean, that was one thing that I was always like, looking at. And then the air pressure of the wheels. I was always checking my, air pressure to make sure my air pressure was right. Every time I'd go for a drive, I'd check the air pressure with the silver thing that came with my car, that, the Porsche air pressure checker, whatever it is, the manual one, which worked reasonably okay. Then I bought...
The cars are pretty sensitive to correct pressures as well, so it's not a bad trait to kind of want to make sure that you're running the pressures that you want.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's why I wish, I think that's a good option. Like I said, if you're buying a new 911 and that was an option, I think that comes standard now with tire pressure monitoring, don't they? I think it's like a standard feature. I would definitely opt for that. I mean, I wish I had that. I have to say I do wish I had that. That's one of the options I wish my car had. Even though, like you said, it is temperamental, and like you said, we still don't really know how it works with summer and winter tires. We did ask this question and no one sort of answered us. No one sort of knew, but you were having that issue when you wanted to have two sets of wheels, which is the same as having winter and summer tires. So I guess when you do your winter tires, you don't have the TPMS working.
Yes, and that's sort of what I kind of arrived at, and why in an ideal world, TPMS could be better in a 997. Maybe it's just because it's like an old system. I have no idea, but it's not super great kind of thing. Not as good as it could be.
Yep. And what about what's the next one? The scraping. And this is more for the GT3 though, isn't it? This is some of the things that
Yes, in reality, when you drive a GT3, that stupid front black spoiler plastic lip thing scrapes like crazy. In Sydney, I don't know if it's anything to do with the profile of the standard kind of driveway and speed humps and everything, but you do scrape like crazy, and you kind of just have to learn to live with it. Interestingly, my mate who just bought his GT3, he reached out to me today to ask me about it. He sort of said, like my front spoiler lip's kind of getting scraped up, do I just kind of replace it? And I sort of said to him, well, yeah, go and replace it, but I think you'll soon discover that you basically can't avoid this kind of scraping. And my tip or hack for him was like, you just kind of constantly spray it with black plastic dip spray paint to make it look a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, it's a common thing with GT3 owners, isn't it? Especially 997, where you even look at them and you can see they're always scraped up. You look at cars on the street, GT3s are always scraped up, and you notice sale ads. People say I've replaced the black plastic lip, which is
Yep.
And, I've been out with
It's
Steve. Steve and I have been out driving, and Steve's like, it's going too fast on the Royal National Park, and then you hit, and then you stop for a bit, and you realise that day when your black lip was hanging off, remember? But it broke something, didn't it? It breaks the clips as well. You have to be careful it doesn't break the clips underneath.
It's a bit disconcerting. Like they consider it a consumable. It's, I think, about $300 these days to kind of just, pull it out. It's got a couple of screws in it. You can just pull it out because it's kind of clipped in, and it's very easy to replace, but it's just not like a enjoyable experience to kind of constantly scrape the front lip of your car.
And this is the thing, I guess, how many times are you going to replace that lip, and how many times, at $300 a pop, which is probably going up every month, every year. Do you just go and get a lift kit like what you did, Steve? You got the aftermarket lift kit added, and the 997.1 didn't come with the lift kit. It was only the 997.2, which apparently was problematic. So, do you do that? I mean, how much was your lift kit? Do you remember?
I think it wound up being, I looked it up. It was 3,000 euros. So back in those days, the conversion was about a bit less than 4K Aussie.
See, that's a lot.
Plus 1,200 to install it.
That's a lot. You spent a lot on that, huh? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. But then I was about to sort of try to recall, like, how many spoiler lips would I have gone through in a year? Like, I reckon maybe half a dozen.
3,000 euro is about 4,000 odd Aussie, right? 4,200 or something like that. Another 30% on top, 30 or 40% depending on exchange rate. So say it's 4,000 Aussie. So you're looking at 5,500 odd Australian dollars to get the lift kit. It's a big investment. And when you buy that when it's spec new, the lift kit on a Porsche today, on a 911.
Wouldn't be that much.
I think it is.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is nearing, in Australia, I think if you add the lift kit, I think it's about $4,000 as a factory option. $4,000 or $5,000.
Just for sanity. It's sort of why it's on my list, because your brain starts to kind of understand that it's just part of the ownership experience to kind of constantly scrape. And I'm talking living in Sydney. I don't know what it's like in other cities, but it just it does actually start to kind of wear thin, because I don't know, it doesn't matter how careful you are, how slow you drive, how many angles you try to find to kind of approach a driveway or a speed hump or whatever. It just sort of becomes a little bit grating on your brain. It's like that, running your fingernails down a blackboard type sort of
It's just
thing.
that noise. I mean, I scrape my car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I come out of the garage at home, you know the angle you've got to come out of that garage, that driveway.
Yeah.
All the driveways in Sydney, everything is on really sharp angles. I don't know what it is, but everything, like Steve said, I don't know whether this is like this in Europe or the US, but everything is on sharp angles. There's no consideration for any car that's lower. I mean, everything is, built for height, cars that are high at the front. You have to go out on a weird angle, but it's that scraping sound that you just think, oh, what have I done? Is it worse than what it sounds, Most of the times it isn't that bad. I mean, sure, you scrape like on mine, the paint underneath gets scraped. I've got a few little scrapes underneath mine. I guess you can get that resprayed. It's not a big deal. I'm going to have to get mine resprayed since someone bashed into me. But, they're all the things you've got to think about it. It's kind of, I don't know, is it particular to the 997? What's not to like about the 997? Is that something that's going to turn you off the purchase? Is that something that's going to upset you once you pick up your car? Like, is your mate, is he thinking, shouldn't do this?
Yeah, just funny little litmus test kind of thing. I'm curious to see how he kind of goes about it. I could take more of a guess, because I'm not that close. He's a mate, but I take a wild guess that when you eventually get your GT3, that you're going to feel very similarly to me, because I know your tolerance for that type of thing will be as low as mine, kind of thing. So
maybe what you should do is you should get him to get the KW ones that you were looking at with the built-in lift and everything, and then you can see what they feel like, and then he can do the test mule. The test mule.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see like if it starts to kind of wear thin for him as well, because it did for me after a couple of years.
No, say that to him. $15,000, you can get KW, whatever they're called, and you can like fix it up.
KWs.
Yeah, you can fix it up. $15,000.
I'll try it out and see. See what happens.
I think the other point you had was about the build quality, right? I mean, I don't know. Is this in particular to 997s, or just early water-cooled generation, 996 and 997?
Yes. So the answer to that is yes. My little thing that I kind of put on what's maybe not as nice to like about a 997 was coming from air-cooled cars that sort of really built like a tank, very solid kind of metal airtight feel disappeared. So when you kind of feel the swing of the door and when you kind of close it, etc., it became more like a normal kind of car, far more like a Japanese car or a BMW or a Merc or anything like that. Whereas in the past, there weren't that many cars that kind of sound and feel like an air-cooled 911 in terms of that feeling of solidity. Look, it's nitpicking. It would be awesome if it still had that feel. And I'm not saying that it's bad, but if I could kind of get that feeling back, then I would love it.
I haven't experienced it as much as you because you had the air-cooled cars, but I did say this to you, and I think I've mentioned it before again on the podcast, that when Autohouse Hamilton gave me a lift to the train station after I dropped my car from service, I got a lift in a 993 Tiptronic, actually, 993 Carrera. And as soon as I got in, the two things I noticed was, one, the sound of the door closing. Actually, three things. Sound of the door closing compared to the 997 was just different.
Yeah.
I felt like I sat lower in the car. It felt like I was even closer to the ground than the 997, which I thought was a bit weird.
Yep.
And the smell of the leather and the smell of the car and the noise. Actually, the noise was slightly louder. It felt louder inside the cabin. I think this is a pretty standard 993. I don't think it had much work. Maybe it had a Fister exhaust done on it or something. I don't know. But it seemed louder in the cabin, like there was less sound deadening.
Yep.
I mean, I guess, the main hate, and I mentioned this before as well, I keep saying that, but the climate control buttons, like I think you had on your list too, Steve,
I didn't have that problem because my car is slightly later than yours. I put that on the list on your behalf.
Yeah, so any 997, one of the things, you don't like about the 997 are those buttons. The Boxster had the same problem. The Boxster was the same buttons, so it had exactly the same problem. As Steve said, it changed.
Audis had the same problem, didn't they?
Huh? No.
Audis of that vintage had the same problem,
Nope.
didn't they? I'm sure
Audi.
they did.
Mine didn't. I had an 04, had nothing rubbed off. Except the driver's side door where my window controls were, the black came off that because of fingernails, I think, and that was worn down. But the other buttons, nothing wore down. I mean, people have the sticky volume control buttons on the PCM. That's another thing you can hate about it, that you've got to change those buttons. They're a cheap fix. The climate control buttons are hot and cold are not such a cheap fix because Porsche doesn't sell that, just the button part. Aftermarket people fix them up, or you can do what I did and replace the whole air conditioning unit. But that's a real thing, when you first get into it. And like I said, I don't know what it was, why I didn't notice that in my car before I bought it, Steve. Like, I really didn't notice it. And it was the day when Tasha and I picked it up and I sat in there and it was like, that just distressed me so much. Like, I just hated it. Like, we were driving, and I was trying not to let it destroy the experience, but I hated it, especially because it was filled in with black marker, which a lot of people were doing. So that's why when I got home, I just literally ordered that air conditioning unit straight away. I just bought it that day.
Yep.
Same day I bought the car, I bought the air conditioning unit from Suncoast and get it shipped because I hated it. I hated it. Yep. So I think that's a really annoying thing. What else?
Headlights.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I've got the standard headlights, so I know what you mean. They're very dim. They don't illuminate much at all. And I came from Xenons. By my previous car had Xenons, so.
Mm-hmm. I've got Xenons, so I wrote that on the list on your behalf because I know your headlights aren't great. So non-Xenon headlights in a 997 just don't light up the road. I know you can change the bulbs out and stuff like that, which will kind of improve it, but it's still not quite up to scratch, really.
Yeah, and I have those bulbs in Sydney, and when I get back to Sydney in the middle of the year, I will actually change mine out to the bulbs I bought, which are the slightly higher illumination bulbs, whatever they were. I can't remember what they were. I bought them from, they were recommended anyway, so I bought those. But yeah, things to hate, climate control buttons, definitely. That's a really big, that's a thing that's going to annoy you. Non-Xenon headlights, it's going to annoy you if you drive at night. The lights aren't very strong. They're very dim. They're yellow. They feel yellow. They're not clear, which is really annoying. For a car that's like 2005, 2006, the lights feel yellow. I don't know why they're so yellow, but they do. The illumination, so that's a bit of an annoying thing. I don't know. Another thing that I think, what's not to like about the 997, maybe this is just every car that has them, but frameless windows, frameless doors.
Oh, you don't like it? Yeah, okay.
I like it. No, I love it. I love how it looks. But every time anyone comes into the car that hasn't been in the car before, they always want to like pull the door by the glass, but not by the handle. I notice people do that. They pull it by the glass.
Mate, you just hang out with heathens.
And then you get fingerprints all over your glass and everything. But I love...
People that ride with me know that you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to kind of eat in my car. You're not allowed to smile in my car.
What about fingernails? Okay, this is a thing, talking about cosmetic things. Fingernails with girls with fingernails when they open your door handles and you get all the scratches. Do you have the PPF inside the door handle so you don't scratch your paint?
Nobody gets in my car.
No one wants to drive in it. It's too hardcore.
It's too loud.
It's too loud. It's too fast. Steve drives too fast. People get scared.
Hardly.
I don't know. The other thing I really don't like, what's not to like about the 997, but I think this is just, I guess the 996 will be the same, is the plastic inner door sills. I don't know why they're so dodgy. You know what I mean? They always mark up so badly. I don't know. I mean, I guess
they
that's
seem
what
to mark up really badly. Hey, like whenever you look at the classified ads, that's one of my sure sort of signs of telling whether or not somebody looks after their car. How scuffed those things are. Like, it looks like they're just not designed to take the beating. But I mean, they shouldn't take a beating if you're kind of careful. But like a normal person tends to kind of catch their feet on the on those inner door sills.
Yeah, and look, I'm very careful when I get in my car, and I know Tasha is too. But sometimes you'll hit it. You know what I mean? You'll hit it, and the soles of your shoes will scratch it really, really easily. But since Steve told me that, like when I was looking for cars and I was looking at them, and every car I see now that has scuffed door sills or scuffed inner door sills, I think it's not well looked after because you put that idea into my head. But it's a common wear point. I mean, they're not so easy to change the outer door sill. The inner door sill is, it just screws out. But the outer door sill, you've got to take the glue off, as we know, and you've got to, take it out.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess it's there for a purpose, though. I guess we're nitpicking because it is there for a purpose. It's there so you don't scratch the paint on the door sill. But then if you keep scratching the plastic door sill, it looks messy when you open the car.
Maybe that should go in under the what's not to like about your passengers, as opposed to what's not to like about your 997.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same as your seat, though, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's the same as the bolster on your seat. You've got to be really careful. Bolster. Yeah, that you don't grab your hand on the bolster when you get into the car, that people don't grab the hand on the bolster, that you actually like just put your ass in and then move your legs in. But a lot of people want to just grab the seat. People
drag their fat asses across the kind of bolster and put all those wrinkles and stuff like that.
I mean, we're being very fussy, we're being very fussy. Anything else, mate?
Nothing wrong with that, mate. No, that's it.
That's it.
So when you look at it, it's actually not a particularly extensive list, but they're the kind of things that kind of can niggle away a little bit. Once you start to kind of live with it over a few years, you kind of go, well, it would have been better if they did this or that or whatever else. So.
Yeah, so these are surfaces, they're design things, and like I said, we're not talking about the mechanical things that, this is just purely sort of, well, some are mechanical, but it's purely the things that, that could make you hate the 997, but they're kind of minor. They're not that big a deal.
They're pretty minor.
They're pretty minor. Yeah. They can be overlooked. You can fix them. You can replace all the plastic with carbon like Steve's done. You can fix up them. If your car doesn't have leather, as we know, you can add more leather parts, which we've all done, which we are doing, which is exciting when you bought it by a car that you can actually get all these parts. The 911, the whole ecosystem of Porsche, the whole parts thing, there's so many parts you can get. Porsche are doing even more parts now, Steve, for all the classics, the 993s and the 964s and even earlier. They're just... I think you can get, even on early 911s and 912s, you can get from Porsche the indicator glass, and you can buy everything now. The parts are all readily available. It's not like you've got a 60s 911 and you can't get the parts anymore. Porsche Classic are making all the parts again.
They're smart. They can make money from it,
and they can make money from it because it's it's a trend. It's a trend to have a classic car, and it's a trend to have a Porsche, I guess, in a way. But I just want to go back to that point actually, because we were talking about this before we started recording. And I always wonder, because a lot of people, like I said on the podcast, have 996s, and a lot of people have bought them. Yeah, but they bought them because the price was right, but they've also bought them because they want a 996. You know what I mean? The people want a 996. Now, I'm just wondering, from when is things that go through my mind is when is that tipping point, between where 996 prices and 997 prices are about the same? I don't know if you remember that when that happened with the 964 and 993, but are we going to have a similar situation where the 964, 993 prices, and those of you who are listening are not sure what I'm talking about, is that the 993 was kind of more sought after. The 964 wasn't as sought after. 964 was obviously older.
964 was literally the ugly duckling, and like for me, it's the first 911 I bought. It was because I could afford it. It was, if I had a choice, I would have gone from 993 to 964, and then at some point in time, that kind of flipped on its head, and I was so surprised.
Exactly,
and
but is
I'd
that
be
what?
Equally surprised if it flips for 996s and 997s. But
Well, it's a similar scenario, isn't it? And, I'm not going to say that people are just buying 996s because of price, because like I said, people buy them because they like them. But the 996, it is very attractive for someone who's getting into Porsche, who wants a 911, which is like what happened with you with the 964.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the 997, we compare it to the 993 in a way.
Yep.
Is the 996 going to eventually be higher than the 997?
It's exactly the same attitude that I had with the 993 versus 964 debate. I would be very surprised. I'd eat my hat, but then I think I'll be eating my hat because it happened with a 964 and 993. I don't understand how it happened, but it did.
I know it's possible, isn't it? It's possible because for so many years, everyone's saying, the 997 is better than the 996, the 997 is better than the 996. But the fact that the 996 is lower in price and more people are buying them, more people are appreciating them, prices are going up. So there is the possibility that the 996 could, in years to come, and this is classic Porsche market and Porsche market in general, you never know what's going to happen, could actually outshine the 997.
Yep, absolutely could. I will still find it weird, but I have no idea how to sort of justify it. And that's not me slagging 996s. It's just that I clearly have a stronger preference for 997s. But I could be in the massive minority at some point in time.
No, I have, like I said, I have nothing against 996s. I was looking at 996s in the beginning. I think if you wanted to buy another 911 now, to have a 911, it's good value. Obviously, the prices in US and the UK are much, much better than the prices in Australia. Australian prices, as we know, Steve, are getting up there. There's some 996s for mid, 65,000. Bearing in mind when I bought my car, I think there was some high mileage 997s for around 70,000 when I bought my car. I mean, my car was, 88,000. But I think it was advertised. My car was advertised at 95,000, and I paid 88,000. So I don't know. I mean, it's 997 prices. I think are slightly on the rise. I think you've noticed that with GT3s as well, and I think 997
definitely GT3s are. Yep.
I think 997 Carrera S's are on the rise more than base Carreras. I noticed the Carrera S price, and I said this to you earlier, that they seem to be in around the 110, 115,000 mark in Australia for higher kilometer examples. So I know that is higher because it was sub 100 before. It was like, 95 maybe, and now maybe they're 115. So that's gone up. Base Carreras don't come up a lot. It's very few base Carreras and manuals seem to come up for sale, which I don't know whether maybe that's a good thing that there's not so many on the market. People are keeping them. People aren't selling them.
It's good for you.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think the 997 is going to go down in value. The point is, like with the 993 and the 964, like we said, is the 996 going to overtake the 997?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I have no idea. It's a very kind of interesting thing. I mean, I noticed, sorry, I'm going to skew your kind of topic a tiny bit, but I've noticed 997 GT3 prices have overtaken 991.1 GT3s as well. So like when you think about it...
true. That's a good point, actually.
A Gen 1 is about, 220, 230, a good one? And a Gen 2 is obviously kind of reasonable amount higher than that, maybe sort of high 200s and up. And like I've noticed 991.1 GT3s have now kind of gotten to, I'm guessing you could probably kind of buy a reasonable one at about 230.
Yeah, but I think it's because of the 10-year thing, isn't it? And this is what I'm not 100% sure about. If it came out in 2013 or 2014.
14.
So 10-year warranty is 2024.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's pushing the price down.
Yeah, maybe. It's just interesting kind of thing. Like if you're in that market, because, do you kind of go, well, naturally the newer car is the better, as we've sort of discussed before, it'll be an improved car overall in terms of it will be quicker, it will be, grippier, blah, 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 blah. But does that necessarily mean that's the one? If you were shopping for a GT3 and you had 230 to spend, which way would you go?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think the thing with the 996, 997, though, that I find is that I think that the 997 prices have bottomed out. I don't think they're going to go down anymore. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They obviously didn't drop as low as a 996 did. 996 prices went, way down.
Yep. And now they're coming back up again?
Do you know what I mean? So 997 prices, I don't think are going to fall, but are they going to hold steady and the 996 is going to match them? This is the tricky bit with pricing. You never know what's going to happen. There is a strong demand. Like I said, there is a strong demand for the 996. People love the 996. People like a lot of things about it. We've seen the prices of Carrera 4Ss in 996s go up to in Australia like close to 100,000 for low mileage examples. And not that long ago, they were only 60. You know what I mean? And now they're 90, 95. So, anything can happen in Porsche. That's why we keep saying, if you want a 911, buy the one you can afford. Don't wait. Buy it now. The longer you wait,
the water's warm.
Yeah, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. True, Steve?
Yeah. And like, I don't think there's a bad option in there. Again, like it's not a matter of slagging 996s or anything. It's just more that I think you'd both be, either way, you'd be kind of a happy camper, a very happy owner.
Yeah, it's not like any other car, Just get one. Just get one or the other. Whatever you can get. Just get in there, basically. Just get in there.
Yeah.
All right, mate.
Yep.
Let's leave it. What's not to like about a 997? Not much. It's pretty. It's a pretty great car. We like it. Yep. We love it. And like I said, 996, you could do the same thing to it. There's a few little things that are probably going to turn you off. You're going to go, oh, I really hate that. But in the scheme of things, it's not really going to stop you buying one. It really isn't. It really isn't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I agree. I think there's things that if some of that stuff niggles away at you, like Michael Lyra did, you kind of just spend some money and kind of fix it. But on the whole, none of it really is a deal breaker kind of thing.
Yep, and that's the fun of ownership, making it yours, adding those things to it, changing out the PCM if you prefer an aftermarket, adding leather bits, adding carbon bits like Steve, or doing it all like Steve did, just changing everything.
I'm now driving an Aston Martin.
All right. That's it, mate. Let's finish it. Let's finish it for today. All right. Have a good day, Steve. Have a good week.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, I need it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you again for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. My name's Michael, as you know. That's about it. Until next time, bye for now.